Good. Welcome everyone to the Kingston Police Services Board meeting dated January 20th, 2022, meeting number 22-03. We'll start today's meeting with the agenda with disclosure of conflict of interest. Anyone? No? Okay. And then deferred items from the previous month is the election of the chair and the vice chair. So I'm going to hand it over to Lori, and she'll take it from there.
Okay, so in accordance with the board's rules of procedure bylaw, the chair will be vacated now, and I will call for nominations for the positions of chair and vice chair for 2022. So do I have a nomination for the position of chair? Jeff? You're on mute.
I'd like to nominate Jared Stearns. He has served as chair well, and he has set up the relationships that he needs with both the associations and the management as well. And I think he's been doing a good job and is most qualified. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Richard? Are there any further nominations? Okay, seeing no further nominations, could I have a mover and a second that the nomination for the position of the chair be closed, thereby confirming the election of Jared Stearns as board chair for 2022? Jeff?
I move.
Jimmy?
I second.
Okay, Jeff and Jimmy, thank you. Okay, could I have a mover and seconder for a nomination for the position, or I'm sorry, could I have a nomination for the position of vice chair?
I will nominate Bridget Doherty because she has been doing well as a member of the board and as a city councilor on the board. And I think she will be well represented as a vice chair as well.
Do I have a seconder? Jeff? Okay, moved by Jimmy, seconded by Jeff, that Bridget be nominated for the position of vice chair for 2022. Are there any further nominations? Okay, seeing none, could I have a mover and seconder that nominations for the position of vice chair be closed, thereby confirming the election of Bridget Doherty as board chair for vice chair for 2022?
I move.
Jimmy and Christian, thank you. Okay, I declare the nominations to be closed and I turn the meeting back to the chair. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Next, may I get congratulations, Bridget, myself. Can I get a approval of the agenda? Jeff?
A second.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy. All in favor? Very good. And then can I get adoption of the minutes of meeting 2201 held on December 16th, 2021? Thank you, Jeff. Jimmy, good. Okay, then we'll move into the communications. And if I could ask Angie or Deputy if they can comment on any of these communications from the ministry.
I'll start with the first four. So the first one was regarding on November 29th, 2021, the Liquor License and Control Act and its regulations came into force, and the Liquor License Act and its regulations were repealed. And this memo clarifies that special constable appointments that grant the powers of a police officer under the Liquor License Act remain valid under the new Liquor License and Control Act. And it's the responsibility of the Police Services Board to request an amendment to their appointment if the roles and responsibilities of special constables have changed. That's not the case in our situation. And the next item is with respect to amendments to Ontario Regulations 36420 under the Opening of Ontario Act. Reopening of Ontario Act, and some restrictions have come into effect December 18th as a result of the Omicron variant challenges. And again, a little bit dated, but this includes 50% capacities in indoor areas of certain businesses if the maximum capacity of the business was 1,000 persons or more, such meeting spaces, sports facilities, cinemas, etc. Further capacity restrictions came into effect December 19th in additional indoor settings such as restaurant, bars, retailers, and indoor gyms, etc. So at this time, social gatherings were reduced to 10 people indoors and to 25 people outdoors.
Okay.
And then the next item was the Inspector General of Policing announcement. And in this particular matter, January 1st, 2022, Inspector General Devon Clunas retired to focus on his health and family. And in the interim, Deputy General Ken Weatherall will assume this interim role. And then the other communication involved the Ontario Police College. The January 12th, 2022 Ontario Police College intake has been delayed to February the 7th, 2022, which will be an online session for recruits until March the 4th. And then it will move to the in-person at the Ontario Police College for practice skills training from March 9th to May 6th, 2022. And this is all in conjunction with public health and in terms of measures with respect to the Omicron variant. And it's set up to ensure the safety of all the students and staff and that are working there. It also has some built-in components should there be any other issues that hopefully that we'll still be able to have a May intake and September intake. So that's all been taken into consideration that we should be on track for 3 intakes this year as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. And the deputy will take the rest.
Okay.
Certainly.
Is there any questions from the board so far? Sorry, Christian, you didn't hear it. Is there any questions from the board so far? No. Okay.
Okay, just an update regarding the Omicron variant testing and isolation. Highlights of this memo included that it's just more changes. Persons testing positive for COVID-19 who are fully vaccinated or under the age of 12 should isolate for 5 days. And if their symptoms are improving for at least 24 hours, and then unvaccinated and partially vaccinated are required to isolate for 10 days from symptom onset. And it also sets guidelines for individuals who've been exposed to someone who has tested positive. The next one relating to steps under the reopening, under steps of the Reopening Ontario Act. The order came into effect January 5th, 2022, includes emergency childcare provided at no cost for all eligible police personnel, special constables, for as long as schools are operating remotely. Additionally, highlights include Ontario schools moving to remote learning until at least January 17th, closure of indoor areas, including indoor dining, meeting space, gyms, etc., as well as 50% capacity limits to certain indoor settings such as retailers, personal care services. Indoor social gatherings are reduced to 5 and outdoor reduced to 10. And our last memo relates to drug impaired driving and detection, and essentially advising that an enhanced funding will continue to be available for drug impaired driving in terms of training and equipment. The Kingston Police has applied to host a standardized field sobriety test course here, and that is scheduled for this spring.
Thank you. And then the Canadian Association of Police Governance. Call for resolutions, and they have to be emailed in by May 31st, 2022. Delegations, no. Moving on to the reports. We have a statistical report.
Yes, so here we have the year-end statistical report from January through to December. And in this, I'll just give you some highlights here, talking about the crimes against persons have increased steadily from 2016 with an increase of 10% over 2020. Drivers of this increase include criminal harassment, harassing phone calls, threats, those kinds of matters. The changes in these categories may be reflective of the impact of the COVID-19 on the mental wellness of persons, such as increased stress and anxieties. Maybe also due to the impacts of isolation, and disruption of routines and the ongoing pandemic and fluctuations and restrictions, remote jobs, job losses, etc. In terms of frauds, we've also seen an increase where recently we've seen the taxi scam frauds, as I've mentioned in the past, phishing email impersonations, grandparent telephone scams, Canada Border Agency scams, to name but a few. Property crimes have decreased, including break-and-enters as well as other thefts, such as shoplifting, but we have seen a shift in thefts involving catalytic converters. And so we've noted that as a trend that's been happening and that we're watching and addressing. Drug offenses have increased overall by about 15% over last year as a result of our drug unit's enhanced enforcement strategy on street level drug trafficking, including fentanyl, but in particular also crystal meth and other illicit drugs. We've also seen an increase in criminal code traffic offenses such as dangerous driving, prohibited driving, impaired driving, and fail to remains. So our calls for service have been increasing steadily and with about a 5% increase over last year. So as we see, we've had about 48,893 calls for service. We roughly do about 1,500 mental health calls for service per year. And in terms of 911 calls, this year we've had 58,778 911 calls.
Okay, very good. And is there anything else from the reports? No, good. Then we'll move on to motions.
We do have the
One
question,
Chair.
Chair, if I may.
What's that?
What opportunities there may exist to both to reduce calls for service and to divert calls for service away from police. It seems that across the country there's increased challenges of increased calls on issues that are not traditional policing matters and that impose a considerable challenge and burden, often on highly trained but often difficult uniformed members, but who find themselves in very challenging situations that are often not necessarily policing situations, whether the chief sees opportunity for diversion of some of these calls.
Absolutely, we do. And thank you for asking that. As I had mentioned before, we were we had entered into a memorandum of understanding with Addictions and Mental Health in terms of diverting lower priority or calls for service in terms of persons in crisis where there isn't a danger to the public or to the persons themselves. And so this has just actually begun this week, where these calls are being transferred to the crisis line. Everybody's been trained to allow for this, and our supervisor in the communications center as well we'll be listening particularly closely to ensure the proper calls are switched over to Addictions Mental Health. So this is a pilot project for us this year to see how many can be diverted away. We're hoping to achieve about 15% anyways in terms of diversion, but we'll take a look and see what that looks like. And of course, in terms of other diversions that we have to other areas, you know, our bylaw have a lot of calls for service that are diverted to in terms of noise complaints and the noise party bylaws. In terms of encampments and homelessness, there's a lot of outreach that are done by our community partners. Home-based housing has an outreach for addressing some issues that are happening within the community as opposed to the police actually responding. So those are good partnerships that are happening that are diverting the police calls for service, and we'll be looking at measuring what that might be. We're also participating in a number of different committees, whether it's downtown committees, homelessness committees, to address some issues that are occurring in terms of behaviors, and looking at ways that are not necessarily police that are responding to those, but it may be a liaison person that has specializations in the mental health and de-escalations that might be the first responders to some of these calls. So these are all in the works for as we're working towards 2022. And it's very important to us that we are working as a community to help address the softer issues that are occurring so that the police don't have to respond to that and are doing really the priority one calls for service that we should be.
Bridget, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your presentation. Just wonder if you could expand. You mentioned there's 15% increase in drug offenses, and you also mentioned there's more enforcement. But could you expand on that? Like, is it reflective of the more enforcement, or is it actually a combination of of both?
Well, you know, the more you measure, the more you draw attention to something, the more offenses that you're going to reveal. So it is a bit of both too. I mean, certainly this is something that we've always been saying as part of our drug strategy. I mean, there's many ways. There's education, there's harm reduction, there's prevention, but there's also law enforcement. And our issue has always been very much in terms of the drug trafficking and the importing and exporting and the higher end that we're looking at. And we're looking at the street level at this point in time, as opposed to right now, as opposed to the big joint forces projects. And so that's bringing that to light. And of course, we're seeing the more and more of the drugs that are in our community and persons that are preying on the vulnerable people. So we want to make sure that we're on top of that. And along with the drugs, what we are seeing is guns that are associated with those that are trafficking as well. So we're getting a handle on that and getting ahead of the curve.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so can someone actually speak to the annual report with the collection of identifying information on certain circumstances?
We have Sergeant Jeff Thompson that's here, and that will be able to speak to both those.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. In regards to the annual report on the collection of identifying information on certain circumstances, I'm happy to report that we had no street checks this year that would trigger that particular piece of legislation. All the street checks that were conducted by our members were within the bounds of the legislation and documented properly. In terms of the 2021 year-end report on the administration of public complaints, this report was compiled by Acting Inspector Murdoch. And during the period of January 1st to December 31st of 2021, we received 60 public complaints from the Office of the Independent Police Review Director, or the OIPRD, and those were dealt with by the Professional Standards Unit. This is an increase of 34 complaints over the same reporting period in 2020. Under item 1, you can see the different classifications of the complaints. And I won't speak to any specifically other than to note that when the complaints were reviewed, the most serious component under the Police Services Act was identified for the tracking purposes as listed under item 1. Some complaints have more than one component, of course. Under item 2, the status of the investigations, we have no outstanding complaints from 2020. And you will see that there's a breakdown there of how each complaint was resolved. I'd like to draw to your attention that approximately 1/3 or 23 of those complaints were screened out by the OIPRD on the initial screening process, which leaves the rest to be either investigated or dealt with by another mechanism, which would either be informal resolution, or the complaint was withdrawn, or a complete investigation was done, for a total of 60 reports from the OIPRD this year. Of course, a screened out investigation is still reviewed by the Professional Standards Office, and if need be, there's an investigation conducted internally regardless. As I noted, under item 3, there's no outstanding investigations from 2020. The Professional Standards Office is also required to report local inquiries, which are less serious matters that are investigated internally. And a local inquiry report is filed when the complainant requests a local resolution, but does not wish to complete or sign an OIPRD local complaint form. So in 2021, we had 11 local inquiry reports filed during this time period. In 2020, there were 9 reports during the same time period. Of the 11, 7 were found to be unsubstantiated and 4 were resolved informally. There are currently no outstanding local inquiry investigations underway. And the breakdown is noted at the end of item 4. And finally, in item 5, there are no current hearings before Police Services Act disciplinary hearing outstanding. And subject to any questions, that's the 2021 year-end report.
I think that Fred has a question. Fred?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for that report. I had a question. There was one substantiated complaint in 2021, correct?
That's correct.
And did that lead to internal discipline?
So that particular investigation was actually one component or one section of the complaint that was investigated. And without revealing the details of the officer involved, I can speak in generalities that had to do with the wearing of a name tag. So that officer's name tag was actually torn off during an altercation prior to interacting with the complainant in this matter. And the officer had not had the opportunity to rectify that before interacting with our complainant. So that was resolved informally inside and was on the scale of things quite minor.
So, thank you. Overall, this is actually quite favorable in terms of a public complaint report these days. I'd like to know how this compares to the last couple of years. Is this the norm? That there's about 60 complaints, is a similar breakdown, and those that are substantiated are resolved early or informally? Is that the case?
Yeah, in terms of how they're resolved, in terms of the breakdown, as you would see under item 2, it's quite consistent. The information that we have from the OIPRD is that across the province, that about a third to a half of complaints are screened out on the front end. Mm-hmm. The OIPRD encourages resolution or a cooperative resolution between the service and complainants. So we do our best to do that on the front end. Of course, some require a full investigation. In terms of the numbers themselves, certainly an increase of 34 complaints over 2020 is quite significant. I can say that in 2020, obviously we had 34 fewer complaints. In 2019, we had a total of 19 OIPRD complaints. 2018, it was 21. 2017, it was 32. And in 2016, it was 31. So a fairly significant jump over the course of this year. I think it's difficult to speculate as to why. Certainly, the community is still struggling with the pandemic, as everybody's very well aware. We had an additional weekend of a Queen's deployment or Queen's homecoming deployment this year. So we had double the interaction with a significant number of police officers from outside agencies in the community during those 2 weekends as well, which is unusual over the past 5 years. We also had some complaints surrounding the enforcement of public health regulations regarding the pandemic's regulations. So those all certainly contribute to what we see in complaints, but I don't think we could say definitively why there's a significant increase without some hard data. I would say that the chief mentioned that we did nearly 50,000 calls for service last year, which certainly wouldn't include things like street checks and vehicle stops that don't result in a call for service. So 60 complaints over 50,000 interactions with people in our community, I think speaks very well of the professionalism of our membership and the good job that they're doing overall.
Thank you very much, Sergeant.
Bridget, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. How do the numbers of the screen, like if you add up the screened out, the withdrawn and the unsubstantiated, like that's 42 out of the 60. And I just wonder what that ratio was in years past too, because that might tell a picture as well.
Yeah.
Not sure if you're on mute, Jeff.
Apologies, sorry. If you just bear with me 1 minute, I'll pull up the report from last year here for you.
Just roughly, because I mean that's 2/3 of all the complaints.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the unsubstantiated complaints are are investigations that have been conducted where it's been deemed unsubstantiated by the investigator and then supported by the OIPRD. I was not in the unit last year, but in reviewing the previous annual reports, we're quite consistent. And as I said, the OIPRD, the information from them in their training packages is that approximately a third to a half of their complaints are screened out on the front end. So I think it's quite consistent, but with higher volume.
And what does screened out mean? Like how is a complaint screened out? Like what's the process?
So the process is that the OIPRD is a civilian-run agency completely separate from policing in the province, as you're aware. They receive the complaints directly from either the complainant or a third party, and they apply their screening process as is dictated by the legislation, which could be deemed not in the public interest. It could be deemed to be frivolous. Outside the 6-month window, they try to only accept complaints within the 6-month window, or the complainant is currently before the courts in some other capacity. It could be a Highway Traffic Act matter or a criminal matter, or for example, in the Queen's events, they've been issued a consequences under the local legislation in Kingston for one of the Queen's events, for example. So those are all taken into account by the OIPRD during their fairly rigid screening process.
Okay. Thank you. No, that all needs to be considered in the number of the 60. Thank you.
When they do their studies, do they ever look at the people that have complaints on them, how long they've been in the service? Like, would it be like maybe newer people in the service get more complaints than the veterans of the service? Is that ever like that?
I can only speak anecdotally, Chair, to what I've seen this year, but we don't have data on the years of service for each member who has a complaint. But I have not noticed a trend in 2021 that would be indicative of years of service being an issue.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So now we are going to move on to motions. And first will be it is requested that the Kingston Police Services Board ratify a motion passed by a poll of a quorum of Board of Members on December 23rd, 2021, pending the next regular meeting, to appoint Kiara McRury and Nathan Emo as officers of the Kingston Police effectively January 4th, 2022. So can I get a motion for that? Or Chief, did you want to say something about them?
I think the deputy's got a couple of bios to present to you as well.
Yeah, if we could do that.
Certainly. Kara McCrory. Kara comes to us after a substantial 10-year career with Corrections Canada, where she worked as a corrections officer in the Joyceville, Warkworth, and most recently Millhaven institutions. Prior to starting with corrections, Kara pursued an interest in law enforcement by attaining a Bachelor of Honors in Criminal Justice Public Safety from Guelph University. During the summer break of her last 2 years in university, she worked as a student environmental bylaw officer with the City of Hamilton, which furthered her experience and skills for a career in law enforcement. While with corrections, Kara volunteered as part of the Employee Assistance Program and the Critical Incident Stress Management Team, and we're certainly happy to welcome her to the Kingston Police Team now. Nathan Emo, after 11 years of military service, Nathan has decided to transition to policing. During his time with the military, Nathan has served in various roles, including military police patroller in Egypt, operations NCO in Ottawa, operations and training clerk in Ottawa. He is currently a master corporal and has completed numerous advanced courses, such as the Tactical Aircraft Security Officer course and the Army Junior Leadership course. He has also been a recipient of the Canadian Peacekeeping Service Medal, as well as the Multinational Force and Observers Medal. Nathan's volunteer work has followed his career interests, being a trained and certified medical first responder with St. John Ambulance, and helping to organize and coordinate initiatives for the Military Police Fund for Blind Children. And we're happy to welcome Nathan here as well. And I had the privilege of sitting in on interviews with both of them, and they're going to do a tremendous job here with the Kingston Police.
Thank you for that. Christian, do you have a question?
I have a point of order, Chair.
Okay.
That under Robert's Rules of Orders, motions cannot be passed by a poll of quorum. The proper governance procedure and the only procedure in the absence of a specific policy for the Kingston Police Services Board, and we do not have a policy on email motions, is that motions have to be passed under Robert's Rules of Order with discussion. An email poll does not provide for such discussion, and so the only proper procedure and the only legitimate procedure under the current provisions that we have is in future that these matters need to be brought to the discussion of the board beforehand, at which point then an email poll can be provided to the members that is simply an up or down vote of a discussion and a matter that had already been introduced at a previous board meeting. It is not possible to ratify motions after the fact in the way this is currently being done. I would thus ask that I will not call in the governance matter on this particular issue. I would simply like to point out that I would ask that the board not be confronted with a governance procedure that runs counter to Robert's Rules of Order, and that in future, any matter of that may be required to go to the board members by an email poll be brought at the previous board meeting for appropriate discussion and then subsequent ratification by email.
Okay, point made. Thank you, Christian. Okay. So we'll move on to the next motion since that has already been dealt with. Would you like to talk to us about Zachary D'Souza?
Certainly. Once again, I've got some information here. Zachary D'Souza. Zachary joins us after nearly 5 years with the Belleville Police Service, where he excelled in his role as a uniform patrol officer. He completed numerous training courses, including road to mental readiness, lead mental health training, standard field sobriety testing, scenes of crime officer, while also receiving the fitness pin for every year of service. Joining Kingston Police signifies a return to his roots, as Zachary has many deep ties to the Kingston community, having spent his formative years in the area. Along with being a goaltender for the Amherstview Jets Empire B Hockey Club from 2007 to 2012, he volunteered as a goalie instructor at tryouts and practices. His volunteer experience also includes food packaging at Partners in Mission Food Bank, mail delivery at Hotel Dieu Hospital, and recycling duties at Kingston Senior Center. Most notably, Zachary was selected to carry the Olympic torch in Hull, Quebec in December of 2009 as part of the Vancouver Winter Olympics torch relay. Secondly, John Theriault. John has spent the past 8 years honing his law enforcement skills with the Edmonton Police Service, specializing in digital forensics since 2018. He holds an A+ certification through CompTIA and has received training from the Canadian Police College on computer forensics, mobile device acquisitions and analysis, internet evidence analysis, and network investigative techniques. Prior to joining the Edmonton Police Service, John obtained his Police Foundations diploma with distinction from Trios College in Oshawa, Ontario. Throughout the years, he has volunteered with the Peterborough Pride Parade, Champions for Youth, Peterborough County OPP Auxiliary, Edmonton Pride Parade, Scouts Canada, and most recently, Second Chance Animal Rescue Society, where he fosters and cares for rescued dogs, along with interviewing potential adopters. So that is Zachary D'Souza and John Theriault.
Okay, thank you for that. Scott. So can I get a motion for 8B for Zachary D'Souza? Jeff, thank you. Jimmy, good. All in favor? Thank you. And can I get a motion for John Theriault? Thank you, Jeff. Jimmy, Christian, very good. All in favor? Very good. And now we'll move on to unfinished business. The Chief's performance review and strategic planning. So we are having ongoing meetings for that. We just had one recently, and it's been going quite well. we've been working together very well, and we're actually getting a good foundation of where we have to go and what we have to do. So it's a little early into what we're doing to have a full synopsis for you, but it is happening and it is being worked on. Okay. Then let's go on to new business. We can have a staffing update.
All right, so I will have some information with respect to some retirements that have happened in the past. And of course, many of them you are already aware of, but I have some bios to read out for you. So it may take a little bit of time, but it's well worth it. The first person I'd like to talk about is the retirement of Donna Harrington, as we know. And so I can say a little bit about her history here. Donna started her career in 1975 as a legal secretary. She worked at 3 legal firms and then entered the federal service in 1981. She traveled with her husband on his military postings across Canada and overseas, and she held various positions in the Indigenous and Northern Affairs, the Parole Board of Canada, and the Department of National Defence. With the closure of Kingston's National Defence College during downsizing of the Department of National Defence in the mid-90s, Donna applied for the advertised position here at the Kingston Police and walked across the street there, at that time was 11 Queen, and started her new career in the municipal civil service as the Secretary to the Chief of Police and Secretary to the Kingston Police Services Board. Her date of hire was Monday, the 4th of March, 1996. So very early on, Donna was recognized for her involvement in the planning of the 1996 award ceremonies that has involved her commitment right through to the very end to her retirement. She was always involved in that. From ordering and preparing plaques, medallions, preparing the introductions for award recipients, and singing the national anthem. She was a driving force in ensuring that such a fitting ceremony was enjoyed by all on behalf of the Kingston Police. In 2004, she sang the national anthem for our award ceremony. It was at that time that Carol Allison Burrow, the board chair at the time, commented to Donna that she should try out for the choir she sings. And the rest, they say, is history. It was very fitting that they performed at the award ceremony where Donna received her Kingston Police Commendation of Merit, which recognized her 20 years of service as a civilian member of the Kingston Police in 2016. In addition to opening our annual award ceremony, Donna has also represented the Kingston Police by singing the national anthems in a number of community events, as well as the gala for our 175th anniversary. Donna also received the Chief's Commendation for her role in the 175th Anniversary Planning Committee. Anyone who knows Donna also quickly recognized her command of the English language and her love for learning. In 1997, she enrolled in the Faculty of Arts and Science at Queen's University and became a part-time student, which culminated in her obtaining a Bachelor of Arts in Honors with a major in English and a minor in Women's Studies in 2003. During her time at Queen's, she was recognized for her high academic standing by being awarded the McNeil Prize, the J. Carl King Scholarship 3 times, the Kathleen L. Healy Prize, and the W.T. McClement Prize. Donna has been a role model not only within our organization, but also to aspiring administrative professionals. Over the years, she's taken the time to mentor and share her wealth of experience and knowledge with students at St. Lawrence College as they work towards careers in office administration. Donna assisted our members with finessing our grant applications and reporting to the funders throughout the year, finalizing and proofreading updates to general orders, as well as newly developed orders and annual staff deployments. She became an active participant in a number of our committees, all this while making the office of the chief run smoothly and anticipating the needs of the chief and the deputy. Finally, I'd be remiss if I did not mention the other part of Donna's job, which was the secretary of the Police Services Board, a very busy and high-profile board. The Police Services Board provides independent civilian oversight and governance of police services. These include establishing policies for the effective management of police service within their jurisdiction. In her function as the secretary of the board, not only is she meticulous in recording minutes of meetings, but she's also the liaison between the board and the various stakeholders, a resource person for a lot of corporate history and knowledge over her years of service, and an organizer who compiles, synthesizes, and distributes all the incoming documents for the board to review in preparation for the monthly meetings. She ensures that all the board policies and procedures are kept up to date and that submissions of scheduled reports be received by the board as monitored. She does all this with the highest regard to integrity, due diligence, and confidentiality. On a personal note, she was a friend and colleague, an all-around great person in our organization. Her positive nature and glass half full view of life has kept us grounded under trying and difficult times. So we wish her all the best in her retirement and that she can spend the next phase of her life completely with her family. So I know I spent a bit of time with her, but in terms of her bio, but you know, she's been with us for a while and with you as well. So wanted to make sure she got the credit deserved there.
I'm glad you did, because it was truly a pleasure to work with her.
So the next person I'd like to talk about is Sergeant Steve Saunders. So Steve started his policing career in October 1988 with the Ontario Provincial Police after 6 years of service with the Canadian Armed Forces. He joined the Kingston Police in May of 1999 as part of the force's expansion at that time. In this time here, he has been assigned to various positions in the patrol and operational support divisions and has dedicated much effort in the area of road safety and traffic enforcement. In his true spirit of public service since 2000, he's also been a reservist in the Canadian Forces Reserve Force, attached to the Princess of Wales' own regiment. In his latter role, he took a leave of absence from the Kingston Police from April to June of 2007 to undertake a 3-month tour of duty as part of Canada's peacekeeping and humanitarian efforts in Afghanistan. He told a local reporter that he chose to go to Afghanistan for the same reason that he became a police officer, to help people. Steve was promoted to the rank of sergeant on February 20th, 2012, where he became the sergeant in charge of the traffic unit, where he continued to build partnerships and participated in many local and provincial committees. Steve has also been committed to our community through volunteerism, where he has taken part in the Sky's the Limit Festival, participated in a local New York City relief sock drive to assist those working at Ground Zero in New York City, supported events for Special Olympics, and was a dedicated member of the Kingston Police Honor Guard. He participated in the Andrew Trudeau Changing Attitudes Golf Classic in support of children's mental health programs and youth support services through the Canadian Mental Health Association, Kingston branch, and he supported the Kingston Sheepdog Trials. In 2009, he was awarded the Police Exemplary Service Medal in recognition of 20 years of loyal and exemplary service, and also his first bar to the Exemplary Service Medal in recognition of 30 years of service. In addition, he's also received the Police Fitness Pin in Ontario, 20-year fitness award in recognition of his dedicated personal fitness and a healthy lifestyle, and went on to receive the 25-year pin and 30-year fitness award. We wish Steve all the best in the next phase of his retirement. Next, we talk about Constable Terry Kennedy. So Terry was a graduate from Loyalist College in Belleville with a diploma in law and security administration. She was appointed to the Kingston Police on July 29th, 1991, and began her career in the Uniform Patrol Division, where she early on had an interest in traffic enforcement. Terry was transferred to the Community Response Unit in 2010, where her roles included crime prevention and then to victim services and diversity position. While in the latter position, she developed and held community sessions called the Citizens Police Academy, which provided an opportunity to create better communications and understanding between police and the community with a focus on diversity issues. She also participated as a member of the OACP, which is the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police Diversity Steering Committee, and was a member of many local committees, including the Kingston Immigration Partnership, the Kingston Anti-Violence Coalition Committee, and was a board member for Victim Services Kingston and Frontenac. Terry also built strong partnerships with our Indigenous community and obtained enhanced training in hate crimes through the Ontario Police College. Terry was transferred to the bail safety position in the Court Services Unit in 2014, where she was also responsible for training our members on intimate partner violence investigations. Terry was recognized for her hard work, dedication, professionalism, and going the extra mile by Victim Witness Assistance Program, where she played an integral role as part of the intimate partner violence team. Terry remained in this position until her retirement. On a final note, Terry received the Police Exemplary Service Medal in recognition of 20 years of loyal and exemplary service in April of 2017. Again, we wish Terry all the best in the next phase of her life. And she retired December 31st of 2021. We have Constable Mike Rice. After achieving a diploma in ambulance and emergency care for the Niagara College of Applied Arts and Technology and working as a paramedic, Mike commenced his policing career with the Quinte West Police Service in August of 1999. He joined the Kingston Police in March of 2002 and was initially assigned to uniform patrol and street crime. He has taken on several additional tasks over the years, including being a coach officer, intoxilizer technician, scenes of crime officer, carbine operator, as well as a hostage crisis negotiator. He is currently assigned to the Kingston Police as a communicable diseases coordinator, collision reconstructionist, a remotely piloted aircraft system pilot, which is drone, a community vehicle inspector, commercial vehicle inspector, and an inspector pursuant to the Dangerous Goods Transportation Act. Mike has received many positive letters from the public describing him as passionate about his career and empathetic and caring for the community he serves. He was recognized along with another member in successfully rescuing a suicidal man from the Montreal Street overpass using his strong communication and listening skills. And using as well for arresting one of Quebec's 10 most wanted criminals who was wanted for a shooting of a female outside a bar in Quebec, just to name a few examples. In January 2020, Mike was awarded the Police Exemplary Service Medal in recognition of 20 years of service. It should also be noted that throughout his policing career, he retained his accreditation as a paramedic for 25 years. Mike completes his career with his assignment to the traffic unit within the community-oriented response and engagement unit. We thank him for his dedication to the Kingston Police and our community and wish him all the best. Next is Staff Sergeant Sean Bambrick. Sean joined the Kingston Police in August of 1995 after graduating from the University of Ottawa with a bachelor's degree in education and social science with a concentration in criminology and psychology. Quite early on in his career, he was recognized for regularly taking a leadership role in high-risk situations as a member of the emergency response unit. Over the year, Sean has been commended for his professional response to incidents involving armed robbery suspects, suicidal persons, homicides, and serious motor vehicle collisions. He was promoted to the rank of sergeant in 2010 and to his current rank of staff sergeant in October of 2014. Sean has worked in uniform patrol, criminal investigations, professional standards, and was a platoon commander in uniform patrol at the conclusion of his career with us. Sean was also designated as an incident commander, who is an on-scene sworn member of the Kingston Police responsible for coordinating our response to major incidents, emergencies, and other serious incidents. Sean has also been actively involved with the Kingston Police Association and was the president from 2003 to 2015. Through his selfless contribution of many off-duty hours, Sean has continually supported Kingston Police and Association and initiatives to benefit the community. In 2016, he received the Police Exemplary Service Medal in recognition of 20 years of loyal service. And in 2018, he attended the FBI National Academy program in Quantico, Virginia, which is a 10-week academic program through the University of Virginia. We thank Sean for his contributions to the safety and security of the Kingston community and wish him all the best in the next phase of his life. And we have Mike Boyles. Mike joined the Kingston Police in May of 1999, and as a first-class constable, after 9 years of service with the Toronto Police, was initially assigned to the patrol division here. He was transferred to special services in November of 2001, where he participated in numerous significant drug busts. In fact, he and another Kingston police officer assigned to the Joint Forces Drug Unit covering Trenton to Gananoque were responsible for 39% of the total output of the unit in 2002, which is a credit to their commitment and dedication to combating illegal drugs. In January of 2005, he was assigned to the Biker Enforcement Unit, where he continued to produce impressive results. Upon his promotion to the rank of sergeant in January of 2007, he returned to the patrol division as a platoon supervisor until February of 2009, when he became a supervisor of the Major Crime Unit in the Criminal Investigation Division. In January 2011, he was assigned as a sergeant in charge of the drug unit. In 2015, he was promoted to the rank of staff sergeant and returned to uniform patrol. In 2019, he was transferred again to the Criminal Investigation Division, where he completed his career. For his exemplary efforts over the years, Mike has received several commendations from the Office of the Chief, from his divisional commander, and from other police services. He is the recipient of the 2007 Kingston Police Commendation of Valor for putting his own life at risk in his solitary response to a domestic violence incident. He was also awarded a Commendation of Merit in 2014 in recognition of his strong leadership skills and drug investigative skills, contributing to the successful conclusion of Project Kendall, a joint forces operation that resulted in unprecedented drug seizures. In 2011, he received the Police Exemplary Service Award for 20 years of exemplary service. In total, he has completed a combined total of 31 years of service. We wish Mike all the best in the next phase of his life. And last but not least, we have the retirement of June Nicholas. You know, if you've ever watched television shows with a policing theme, you will have noticed that most of the focus of the excitement is on actors portraying police officers. However, most emergencies are first reported in the 911 communications center. June Nicholas has been one of our communications operators since January of 1988 and has been commended many times for the calm and professional manner in which she carries out her duties for the ability to multitask in an extremely busy environment. As an example, we have received letters of appreciation referring to June as, quote, the sweetheart I spoke to last evening, and about, quote, the great work of your dispatch staff member, June, who pieced together the information that we were able to provide so that our missing person was found quickly and safely. June is a highly experienced and integral member of the communications unit, and we thank her for her 34 years of service to the Kingston Police and for the many times that she has been the reassuring and helpful voice on the other end of the line, as well as for the many times that she's been the calm and steady emergency call taker during unpredictable situations. We wish her all the best in the next phase of her life. And that concludes the bios.
Thank you for that. So next would be, I was going to talk about the CABG Police Board Commission Chair Roundtable, but because of my dental surgery, I think I'm just going to leave that one till next time because I won't do it any justice. So we're going to have a motion to move in camera if we could. Jeff, Christian, thank you. All in favor? Thank you for everyone's time. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us.
Thank you.
Do you want a break, Jared?
Can we say 10 minutes?
We can say 10 minutes.
Thank you.
So we'll start 1:10.